Recording in progress.
Pressure's on. All right, everyone. Good afternoon. It looks like the sun has peeked out through this snow thing. That I am excited that pumpkin spice lattes are going away and the peppermint is coming out. But I could deal with for not having the snow today for sure. But want to go ahead and call the Housing and Economic Development meeting to order. Today's November 1st, 2023. It's 3:06 p.m. We have a relatively full agenda and definitely expect to have some comments and some good discussion. I am going to reorder a few things on the agenda if that's okay. We had, I think, 80% of the people on today's agenda had asked for some sort of time accommodation. So we're trying to juggle all of those and fit that all in. So we may not follow the order of the agenda exactly, but we will cover everything on the agenda. The one item that change we need to make is remove item B, standardizing process for payment in lieu of taxes, which is under number 9 for the Planning and Sustainability Department. That was added to the agenda in error, so that that has been removed. We're going to kick things off actually with arts and culture, because we do have one public commenter that signed up but is not joining. Okay, so if the person does decide to join, we're happy to take that public comment at any time throughout the meeting. But we'll get started because we have Nick Helmholt, our tourism director here, with a couple of resolutions. So we're going to be under number 10, arts and culture and tourism. So Nick, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so we have 2 resolutions today in this part of the agenda. The first is relating to a agreement with the Chamber of Commerce to operate the Convention Visitors Bureau. You'll see there's a resolution and a memo attached in there. A little bit of backstory. We've had a agreement in place with the Chamber of Commerce since for the past 5 years to operate the CVB, and on the recommendation of the Strategic Tourism Planning Board, are asking that the county enter into a new 5-year term to continue that service. The agreement has been revised basically to bring it into compliance with current county policies, to clarify roles and responsibilities, the payment schedule, and reporting process, among other things. The intention is for this agreement to be funded entirely through hotel room occupancy tax over its term. Yeah, that's basically the nuts and bolts of it. You have the proposed agreement in your packet there for review, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Just so everybody's clear, this is on packet page 34. And actually, I missed a step. I apologize in the shuffle. I'm going to move resolution number authorize the county administrator to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Tompkins County Chamber of Commerce for the operation of the Ithaca Tompkins County Convention and Visitors Bureau CVB Doc ID 11730. I'll move that if I have a seconder. Seconded by Mike Sigler. So I guess we'll open it up for questions and discussions on the resolution. Ann, I saw your hand.
No, I was just going to second.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Any questions? I know we have Jennifer Tavares here from the Chamber and CVB. So, Mike.
So, the Visitors Bureau used to be based at your old building. Is everything now in the new building, or have you kind of split that into the? Didn't we have some space too over at the History Center? I'm not sure about that.
Yes, we still, the county rents space to the Chamber to operate the Visitors Center downtown. So, yep, that's a separate agreement. That will actually be, the intention is to be the same term as this agreement.
Jennifer, you can come up.
Please do.
Mike,
If you could come up to the.
This is setting you up. This is literally setting you up.
context, all that is important that everyone understands it. So the Chamber of Commerce has been operating the Visitors Bureau as part of our organization since the 1980s, maybe earlier. So this is like a many decades long relationship at this point. The CVB is part of the Chamber. We are one organization. It's not a separate entity. So just legally, it's one entity. At East Shore Drive, we operated a visitor center as part of our operations there. We also have always, well, for many, many years, operated a downtown visitor center, which is, in fact, in the TCHC, which we do lease that space from the county now. And then we also operate the visitor center at the Teganic Overlook. But I do just want to be clear, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, as a division of the Chamber, does a whole lot more than just operate the visitor centers. That's just one component of all of the things that we do as part of our annual work program. Yeah, thanks.
Setting you up for the spot.
Appreciate the opportunity to sort of contextualize. Thanks.
Any other questions on the resolution? All right, seeing none, we don't have to do a roll call vote yet because Travis has not joined us, so we'll vote by a show of hands. All those in favor of this resolution? That looks to be unanimous. All right, well, congratulations on another 5 years of a great agreement and working relationship together.
Well, we appreciate the support and the partnership, and especially the work of Nick and the team in the planning department. So
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thanks.
Could I just make one quick comment,
Of course,
as long as Jennifer's here? Thanks for organizing the community conversations in Trumansburg, Ulysses this morning. That was very informative and nice to network with other folks.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. We're happy to do it. And we think it's a really important part of our work that we do, and look forward to continuing expanding that. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for being there.
The next we have is a resolution to authorize the county administrator to execute a contract for a visitor's profile study, ID 12022. Wait, did I say that right? ID 12022, sorry. It's rough today. This weather's got me upside down. I'm going to go ahead and move that. If I could have a second, please. Seconded by Ann. Nick, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So earlier this year, we issued a request for proposals to do a visitor profile study. We got 3 responses and selected a finalist from those. All of the responses had asked for a term of engagement over 1 year. So the finalist here, the one that has been selected, has proposed an 18-month term, and that would be required to collect the data. So per county policy, we need authorization to enter into the agreement that since it exceeds 1 year in length. That's generally it, and hope to have some information about why people are visiting and what they're doing while they're here in roughly a year.
Great. Any questions? This is on packet page 50. Any questions on this resolution? Veronica.
Yeah, just do we get to know who the vendor is, or?
Oh, yeah, sure. No, the company is called Future Partners. They recently changed their name. They were Destination Analysts. Yeah.
And Nick, just to remind everybody, the funding for this comes from?
Hotel room occupancy taxes.
Great. And this has already been budgeted in the years in which it will take place?
So we have enough budget for the visitor profile study component. We're going to ask for a budget adjustment in 2024 for the economic impact component, because that did exceed what we had budgeted for. So they can be done sort of independently.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, we'll call this to a vote. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. All right, and then Nick, one of the other things, just as a little bit of a time filler and try to move some of the things on the end of the agenda up, if you could give us an update, a brief update, again, high-level overview on, process, things like that, things that you can share at this point on the county broadband RFP.
Yeah, certainly. I'll try to be as detailed as I can, but also understanding that we are still in the active evaluation process of this purchasing decision, so there may be some things that I can't get into in as much detail as folks would like. But yeah, On October 16th, we had a deadline and bid opening for a request for proposals focused on expanding broadband to unserved locations within Tompkins County. Through the planning department, we've been working with ECC Technologies over the last year in identifying exactly where those locations are that are unserved and coming up with options on how to expand service to those locations. Their top recommendation was to issue a RFP to the internet service providers who may be interested in expanding their networks into those locations. So that RFP closed, and we received 7 responses. Those responses ranged on a county cost basis from under $1 million to over $33 million. And on a geography basis, from the smallest one being one town to multiple proposing coverage over the entire county. All of the solutions are focused on expanding out a fiber to the premises or fiber to the home technology. So we're seeing a fair amount of consistency in that regard. All of the solutions have included, as far as we can tell, all of the required attachments and certifications that are necessary to proceed onto the evaluation stage. And we are preparing documents and materials that will help our evaluation committee compare all of these various proposals in a way that is as even-handed as possible to show the differences in cost per mile, cost per passing, which is the sort of industry term for an address where you might serve broadband to or a home. Yeah, we're looking into that in a lot more detail. There are some nuances here. We have some proposals that have specific requirements in terms of the phasing they are identifying, whereas other proposals did not identify phasing requirements or needs. We have differences in terms of the timing, ranging from roughly 24 months to 36 months, based on what I can recall. And yeah, we have a range of firms that responded to this in terms of their current presence in the county and ones who are new, would be new entrants into the telecom business in Tompkins County. So it's exciting. I think you know it speaks to the work that was done early on to make the RFP something that we could get interest from a variety of different firms in the mix there. So I think the evaluation committee is going to have some challenging decisions ahead to figure out how to make this all work. So I don't have much more to add. I didn't have a detailed presentation to go into, but happy to answer questions as I can.
Any questions for Nick or go ahead, Ann.
Yeah, so did you say some of the options are to fill in areas and did you say that there was at least one option that would be providing internet to everybody in the county? That like the 33 million?
It's a little bit unclear, at least, and I don't have the proposal at my fingertips, but there was one that appeared to be a very wide-ranging approach that would go beyond sort of the scope that was proposed in the RFP. So. Okay.
And the scope, just to clarify, was the underserved or unserved?
Unserved, yep, and approximately 1,200 homes spread throughout the county. Yep.
And unserved can also mean if they don't have speeds meeting a certain requirement.
Yeah, so
under
you'll have
100 megabytes.
DSL typically is your threshold. If you have that or less capable internet, then you'll be in that unserved classification.
I remember when DSL first came out, it was a very exciting thing. You could get on, AOL, instant message chat, and all sorts of stuff a lot faster back in the day.
You didn't have to wait for the dial-up, yeah.
The dial-up, yeah.
That noise is coming to my head.
Yeah. All right, any other questions on the broadband RFP? All right, well, seeing none. Nick, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Sure thing.
We'll check these items off the agenda. Next up on the agenda, we have career pathways under workforce development. We have Aloja joining us remotely. Aloja, help me with the correct pronunciation of your last name. I just want to make sure
I'll be happy to help. Can you hear me well?
We can, yes. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, it's Ira Willie. Ira Willie.
Okay. I will work on that for next time. I appreciate the help there. But thank you for joining us. We wanted to give you an opportunity to, give a little bit of an overview, about 10 or 15 minutes of conversation, discussion, questions about the program that you have, the Energy Warriors Green Workforce Training Program, and some of the work that you're doing there as it relates to workforce development within the county.
Thank you so much, and I do appreciate this opportunity to come before this committee, and also I want to thank the county for the support we have had over the last 2 years in running this. So the Career Pathways project came about in order to bring a workforce training and work readiness to citizens of our county to prepare them for the jobs that will come as we move towards a sustainable sustainability. I know the city of Ithaca, the town of Ithaca, the county, we all have sustainability goals. So this is not the typical workforce development. So it's not a duplication of what is already happening in the county. It's not a construction as per se, but it is designed in order to support our goals in making sure our communities are climate resilient. I emphasize that because individuals we work with have to have the basic understanding of what the environmental challenges that we have, this big challenge of climate change. What are the factors that need to be addressed in any community that, this local community in addressing whether reducing our carbon footprint, making our homes much more, healthy, and, training a workforce that has not, traditionally been brought into this arena. So the individuals that we focus on are not from any particular group. And I want to emphasize that because we are not a reentry program, but we are open to people coming in through reentry. Actually, the Energy Warriors as a program was started first to reach young people who were in the New York State juvenile detention centers. It was to bring them into the green collar jobs. So we brought that into the community to have a more holistic, cohort of people who have been hard to place in jobs, but give them skills and the basic knowledge to do that. But also people who are underemployed. There are many in this county. There are people who've been to community college, who are doing jobs that just to pay bills. So we're looking for sustainable career pathways. And then there are people who just want to move from one job to the other and to have a sustainable job. So that is the idea of the career pathways. And the reason why, after my years of working in this county, for about 13 years, I was in charge of the Homeless Services Program of the American Red Cross, which is now being handled by St. John. And I actually worked with the county jail, and my work led to what is now the reentry program. So I have worked with individuals from homelessness, inadequate education, or to instability from other factors, mental health and substance abuse. I have worked with them in this county, so I understand this county. And the goal is to make sure that individuals actually have stability. Sometimes I've had people, wanted to know exactly who do we reach. We are open to every resident of this county, any age, any gender, any ethnicity that is looking to enter into a dignified, sustainable job. Some people have misunderstood the fact that my reach is just to people who are either struggling or look like me. That's not the goal. The graduation that will be happening on Friday, if you are able to attend, you will be able to see the spread that it is anybody in this county who is able to, to work, to and who wants to get into this green workforce training. And then the reason we decided that we wanted to give an environmental literacy component is that we wanted people to understand the challenges of climate, of global warming. This is the most monumental challenge that I'm facing in my lifetime, and I think you are. People have to understand it. They have to also understand issues of climate justice. They have to understand issues of environmental justice and injustice. They have to understand people who've been disproportionately affected by these changes. And then as a community, we have to work on ways, to mitigate this. I was also very strong on making sure that it was a collaborative effort. I have respect for a number of organizations in this county that do outreach, that do training in one form or the other, whether it's youth or adults. But I wanted to make sure we're on the table, the same table, to eliminate duplication. So part of my work is actually making sure that we eliminate duplication and multiply our resources. I'll give you an example. So recently, TST BOSIS, a very good partner with us, got funding from TCIDA to do heat pump training, which is held Tuesdays and Thursdays. So what we do is to prepare individuals with the basic knowledge and funnel them into that process. And we are therefore able to also work with employers like Halco, like Lamont Electric, and those who are working within our region to make sure these individuals actually get into the workforce. There's something that has just started actually in October, and I'm very excited to talk to you about it. This is where your support has been very instrumental. Last year, we were able to get a private funding up to the tune of $220,000. And what they wanted us to do was to bring individuals into this training and also pay them to be in a pre-apprenticeship or on-the-job training. So as of this month, Block Power and Connect Cooperative Extension have an agreement, and 4 individuals, for which I will be happy to have members of the legislature actually visit our work site, are weatherizing homes. They are working on homes where the rim joists are not adequately insulated. And one of such buildings that we worked on last week was the Women's Opportunity Center basement. These individuals are paid $20 an hour. That funding, that grant that CCE got from this private foundation pays for the materials and pays for the individuals to actually work 32 hours a week. We have started with 4 individuals, and the goal is to scale it up to about 12. We have that funding till June of next year. So what I'm basically saying is that the money that the county has invested, we've been able to double that, because every time we go to a private foundation, we let them know that the county has a skin in this game by what the county does in terms of funding what we call employment navigators. One of them is embedded at Reuse organization. Another is embedded within the OAR. So these help with recruitment, employment connection, and support. Some of the individuals we work with may be ready to go to work from day one, but some who have not worked for a long time may need some support in the first few months. So I am excited in the sense that this is something I've always hoped will happen, where individuals are able to make some baby steps and eventually be firm enough to work on their own and have jobs that actually pay well. So this is what the Career Pathways Project is about. It is providing like a buffet of choices for individuals to explore their career pathways. There are individuals who already know what they want to do, and they're able to pursue all of that. There are individuals who, especially after the pandemic, are not really sure where they fit in. We have a college graduate who says, I have a hole in my resume, and I've been very, very nervous to go into the workforce. well, he's been working on for 2 weeks. So this is the goal. The goal is to make sure that we can prepare a workforce that will work along the city of Ithaca, the town of Ithaca, the county's sustainability goals as we work in our buildings to make sure that they are, either fully electrified without having to make 70% of the workforce from the outside. So I will stop here because I've said a lot. I can talk a lot about this program. It's something I'm passionate about, and it's something for which I think we've got a lot of support. So in a nutshell, that's what the Career Pathways is. It is not a duplication of what any other group is doing. We work with Workforce Development Center. Actually, tomorrow I'll be meeting with Chris Pond, and the work is collaborative. I feel very much, I'm very convinced about the need for all of us to work together because no one organization can do it alone. The need, the training, the support that is needed, there's no one organization so far I've seen in Tompkins County that can meet those needs. It's just not there. So I want to stop here. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity. I will welcome questions.
Of course. No, again, I appreciate you taking the time to give that introduction and overview. I know one of the things that I have as a personal goal looking ahead into 2024 for this committee is a focus on workforce development and how we can have more in-depth conversations with the various organizations out there doing the workforce development work, understanding that there's different pathways and pipelines. There's different constituent groups with different needs that are served by different programs, but really trying to, as a committee and as a legislature, wrap our arms and minds around all of these different efforts so we can, best decide how to support and make sure we continue to advance the work that these organizations are doing. So that is one of the reasons why I wanted to get some time with you on our agenda. Also, your graduation on Friday, could you just confirm for members of the committee the time and location? And I know if some of us will attend, we'll definitely attend and we'll let you know in advance. But could you just confirm the details again?
So the graduation for a cohort that we just worked with over the summer, five of them, and it will be on Friday, November the 3rd. And the venue is TC3 Extension in the Commons. That's Tioga Place, and it's room 611. And Greg, I would be very happy to send that full information again to you. But it's room 611, 10:30 to 12. We're not expecting, with your busy schedule, to be there for all the time, but we will actually start presenting the certificates by 11 a.m. And it will mean a lot if a few legislators can come, because this is your dollars in action, but also your support. I'm hoping that Rich John, who always comes, he will be there. But I would love for you to hear from the trainees. It's hard for me it will be better for you to hear from them, what they have gained, what they are doing. So please, November the 3rd, 10:30 to 12, TC3 Extension, room 611.
Great. I have that on my calendar. So I know I will be there, and if any of my other colleagues can make it, I will let you know for sure. Any questions for Aloja on his program or career pathways or anything that was discussed today?
I have
Go ahead,
one or two, if we have time.
Yes, please.
So thank you for your presentation, Aloja, and telling us more about your program. And so I'm chair of the Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee. So of course, for me, climate change is at the forefront of a lot of things that I think about. So I appreciate the work that your folks do, that you're training, to be on the forefront of a lot of work that needs to be done and that is going to be done in this area. So one question I have, you talked about that they're provided with a salary or a pay of $20 an hour. Is this commensurate that they'll be for jobs like this out in the community, that they would be getting that much or more in real jobs?
Yes. So we wanted to, thank you for that question. We are hoping that our trainees will actually earn more than that. But the weatherization jobs that we are seeing, heat pump installation that we are seeing, that is about the starting and a little bit more. And with this time, they don't have benefits, but they will have, with some of the jobs, they will also have the benefits of, healthcare and other stuff. So that's our goal. We wanted to start them on, so they can feel that this is what it will be like when I'm working, when I'm fully working, fully employed.
And so 2 more quick questions. How long is the program? And I apologize if you said this, like how long is the training program?
So thank you, because I don't think I broke it. So there are 2 components to the training program. It's an 8-week training program, which is an in-class and on a hands-on, which, it goes through about 10 modules from waste management, materials management, water treatment, energy building, of course, which are huge, transportation. That's an 8-week program. And for that also, they get $800, $100 each week. Is basically to cover their transportation and the rest. We provide, the breakfast each time. And then, so that's 8 weeks. Once they are done 8 weeks, the on-the-job, not everybody wants to do weatherization. So we have been fortunate to collaborate with Reuse. Reuse has hired some of them who want to go into materials management. But yes, 8 weeks training, and then this on-the-job, we're hoping that it will go from 3 to 6 months. We have funding up to June 2024 to be able to make sure it continues to be paid.
And you said, thank you, and then you said that you have a grant or some grants that also pay for equipment and supplies, like personal equipment that they would need and safety equipment?
So yes, we do. Yeah, thank you. This is, I've never seen a generous grant like this in my years of working. Yes, actually allows us to pay also for the materials, but in low to medium income homes where we are doing the weatherization, we actually pay for the materials, and then also we transport the individuals. We pick them up at TC3 and take them to the various work sites. They've been all over the county. And we actually this week just giving them checks, to buy, boots and, winter clothing to be able to go on the jobs, and gloves and the other things, yeah.
And the insulation materials, you're saying too?
The insulation,
wow.
Yeah,
So,
yes.
Yeah, that is.
All the materials needed for the job.
Yeah, that is an awesome grant that pays for so many different things, because a lot of times it's siloed. It pays for this, but then you don't have the money to pay for different parts of that. So, great. So thank you for coming to us today. And I'll try and make it on Friday.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
All right, well, Aloja, I know this is just the beginning of probably a lot of conversations that we'll have together over the next several months and hopefully the next years to come. So appreciate your time and all the work that you do on behalf of your organization and those that are looking to better advance their career into what I think you called green collar jobs, which I like that term. Again, thank you for your time, and we'll look forward to speaking with you soon, and we'll see you on Friday.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a great day. All right. Next up, we have our Planning and Sustainability Department. I see we have Megan McDonald up there, Deputy Planning and Sustainability Commissioner, who's joining us remotely today. Hi, Megan. Thanks for joining us. Will you be addressing the resolution we have, the first resolution we have on the CDBG, or? Sorry, you're on mute.
I will, and I'm going to just close my camera for a minute to see if I can get that better.
All right, so we have a resolution scheduling a public hearing for New York State Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, award number 1144ME978-21 Micro Enterprise Grant Program ID 12021. If I could have someone move that, please. Moved by Ann, seconded by Veronica. So we have that now on the floor. Megan, I'll turn it over to you for a brief introduction.
Sure, and there's not much more to share than what's in the memo that as part of the Community Development Block Grant process with New York State, we are required to have a second public hearing when we're most of the way spent down on the funding for the program. And since we've hit that point with microenterprise and the grant is going to be wrapping up in January, we wanted to go ahead and get that scheduled. And that gives the public an opportunity just to share any thoughts they have with the administration of the grant.
Great, and that public hearing will be for December the 5th, 2023,
Correct.
right before the legislature meeting on that Tuesday night. Any questions for Megan on this? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. I'm going to turn it over to Elliot now, who we've all anxiously been awaiting the Tompkins County 2022 Housing Snapshot presentation. That's ID 11984. That kicks off on packet page 22, right? Yeah, 22. So I'll give Elliot a second here to get settled in. Just also want to shout out, I see Martha Robertson, my predecessor, is also up there on the screen. So just a quick hello. No pressure committee, but she used to chair this committee for quite some time. So just want to give a shout out to Martha, and I know others that are watching for Elliot's presentation today.
Good afternoon.
Thanks, Elliot.
A moment while I set up here.
Jordan or Taylor, can somebody check the Zoom link for Travis? He just got it. Okay. Great.
All right, so I have a presentation on the Tompkins County 2022 Housing Snapshot. This is the fourth edition.
All right, Elliot, can you speak closer to the, or pull the mic closer to you?
Absolutely. So again, I'll be presenting on the Tompkins County 2022 Housing Snapshot. This is the fourth time that we've issued a housing snapshot report since the first 2018 edition. The full report, or a link for the full report, is available in the web-based agenda. And I'm going to be giving a presentation on our key findings. So the housing snapshot reports are part of the Tompkins County planning process for addressing the housing needs of county residents. That process began with the 2016 Housing Needs Assessment, which was followed by the 2017 Housing Strategy. And that document set targets for housing production in 4 areas: workforce housing, senior housing, supportive housing and special needs beds, and student beds. The housing snapshot reports are issued periodically to help monitor housing conditions and trends, to track progress towards meeting those targets established in the housing strategy. And it's also a useful source of information to support local housing initiatives and as well as projects that are seeking funding. So the 2022 Housing Snapshot is divided into 3 sections. The first looks at demographic and workforce trends related to housing demand. The second section looks at housing stock conditions, housing affordability, and market conditions. And finally, the third section provides estimates on the number of new homes that have been created corresponding to the targets established in the housing strategy. There's a lot of different data sources that went into the report, and you can find detailed information about those data sources and the methodologies we used in Appendix A of the report. I also wanted to note that we also got a lot of valuable input from other county departments and as well as a lot of our community partners. That was indispensable, and so some of those partners are shown on the slide here. So as we reviewed the findings of the 2022 Housing Snapshot Report, we found a lot of things that were pretty much a continuation of what we saw in past housing snapshots. So for example, we continue to be a regional outlier for population growth and household growth. Household size in the county continues to shrink, and the 65-plus age cohort continues to grow. So those are continuations of what we've seen in the past. So in this presentation, I wanted to focus more on sort of the new and emerging trends that we're seeing in terms of the conditions and trends. So we've seen. So among the things we'll be going over in this presentation, we've seen a steady increase in the cost of rents, but we've also seen similar income gains. We, however, have seen an increase in severely cost-burdened renters, so those paying more than 50% of their household income on housing. On the past couple years, we've seen really dramatic increases in the cost of for-sale housing, and also a very competitive market with limited inventory. We're facing national trends that are challenges to housing production and affordability, such as inflation, labor shortages, high interest rates. And then finally, there are questions around implications of what we're seeing in employment trends, especially since the pandemic and the recovery. So I'd like to start with the employment trends. Like much of the country, we saw a big dip in employment during the time of the pandemic. We actually fared relatively well compared to New York State as a whole. And by 2022, employment had almost returned to 2019 levels. So, we thought through how to interpret this trend. We would not interpret it as indicating that there's a drop-off in housing demand. We've seen over the past decade pretty robust growth in households. And as we'll see in slides later in this presentation, we're also underproducing housing. And the lower employment numbers are, at this point, probably more so a reflection of longer-term labor trends rather than the direct effects of the pandemic. A lot of people who are dropping out of the labor force may, such as retirees, may still be living in the county. So what we would say on this point is this is an important trend to keep track of in terms of its housing demand implications. So it's something we should continue tracking over time and being aware of. Housing affordability in Tompkins County continues to be a serious issue. From 2011 to 2021, the most recent data we have, median rent for a one-bedroom unit increased by almost 35%, while the renter income increased by almost 30%. We found that rents rose faster in the second half of that decade. They also rose faster for larger units. As you can see in the chart, almost 60% of Tompkins County renter households are cost burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing costs. But that number hasn't shifted much over that decade. However, from within that same time period, we did see a pretty significant increase in the percentage of renter households that are severely cost burdened, so again, spending more than 50% of their income on housing costs, rising from about 33% to about 38% of renters. In the for sale housing market, we saw a dramatic increase of over 40% in the median home sales price. We're seeing an expensive and competitive market with restricted supply. And there are a couple indicators that you can see in the table there that reflect that highly competitive market. The new listings from 2019 to 2022 dropped quite a bit, but the total closed sales remained about the same. In 2019, the average buyer was paying about 96.8% of the list price, whereas in 2022, that was up to 103.4%, so reflecting a more competitive market. The county is, going forward, we're going to have to grapple with national trends that will be a challenge to housing production and housing affordability, including high interest rates for mortgages and construction loans. Cost of construction materials have increased along with labor costs, labor shortages, rising land costs. These have already and are anticipated in future years to cause project delays, budget gaps for developers. We're already seeing some of that in some of the projects that we're funding through the Community Housing Development Fund. And obviously that's going to be a challenge in terms of meeting our housing targets in coming years. So that takes us to the tracking housing targets section of the report. So the housing strategy, which again established the targets for housing, doesn't have an overall housing production target. However, we thought that was important information, and we used the Department of Assessment tax parcel data set to come up with an estimate of new homes created from 2016, when the planning period starts, to 2022. So using that data, we estimate that about 3,200 new homes have been created, about 600 of them being single-family homes, and about 2,600 being multifamily. We found that 89% of the multifamily homes were built in areas that the county has prioritized for development, so the urban core and the villages, the rural hamlets, what we call development focus areas. That's compared to only 20% of single-family homes that were built in those areas. About 83% of that new housing was located in 4 municipalities: the city of Ithaca, the town of Ithaca, town of Lansing, and the village of Lansing. So this is our first target, which is ownership workforce housing. So the general concept behind workforce housing being that all income ranges among the local workforce are accommodated by the local housing market. And the housing strategy sets specific price points for its targets for workforce housing. So on the left side of this table, you can see numbers that are the targets that were set in the housing strategy for 2016 through 25. And then in the right-hand side, you can see the corresponding number of units that were built as of 2022. And in some cases, these are not, we're not reporting exactly the type of housing that's established in the that's identified in the targets, just due to data limitations. So, for example, for ownership units, we're actually reporting the number of single-family homes, new single-family homes, some of which could be rentals. So I'm not going to go through this table in detail because you can take a pretty quick look at these numbers and tell that in terms of ownership workforce housing, we are well below what was determined to be the amount of housing that we need. For rental workforce housing, the target was 2,000 new rental units affordable for those earning up to 100% of area median income. So for that criterion, we don't have the data to know what new market rate housing units meet that criterion. But we do know that as of 2022, so from 2016 to 22, we've created 466 new income-restricted rental units, so affordable housing. And that's excluding supportive and senior units. So that's the workforce housing. And in the timeline there, on the right-hand side, you can see that we've counted about 314 affordable workforce housing units that are currently either planned or under construction. For senior housing, the first goal, 100 to 200 subsidized senior apartments to meet the 2016 deficit, so what was missing in 2016. To date, or I should say as of 2022, 68 subsidized senior housing units were built, and all of those were in one project. We have not created a Medicaid assisted living program facility, and we actually have yet to establish a specific goal for market rate senior housing. But to date, or again, as of 2022, we have created 71 market rate senior housing units. And this timeline shows those projects, which actually haven't changed, I don't think at all, since the last housing snapshot. There are 3 projects that are currently planned or under construction, including the DeWitt House, which is being built on a formerly county-owned property. In terms of supportive housing and special needs beds, so the first target here is the 100 beds of permanent supportive housing. I just want to clarify that this is the target that was set in relation to the housing strategy. More recently, the Human Services Coalition came out with the Home Together Tompkins plan. So looking at need in 2022, and they have recommended creating 100 permanent supportive housing units based on the more current need. So I'm happy to report that we have created 100 permanent supportive housing beds from 2016 to 2022. Based on the Home Together plan, there's still more work to do. And then in terms of single room occupancy beds, we've struggled to meet that target. There are a number of supportive housing projects that are underway in the county, either planned or under construction, which definitely go a long way toward meeting the Home Together recommendation. We count about 80 units, supportive units currently planned or under construction. For student beds, the target is a little more complicated, so I'll just take a moment to explain. So in 2016, a deficit of 1,400 to 1,500 beds was identified. So that's our starting point, and then we have to modify that target for any increase in enrollment. So looking at the available data, we found that from 2016 to 2022, the number of enrolled students increased by 2,016 students. So we take that 1,500, add it to the 2016 new students, and we come up with an overall target for 2022 of 3,516 total beds needed. So that target's going to change over time along with enrollment.
I'd like to answer a quick question. Does that include the Cornell North Campus beds?
Yes, so
Okay.
yeah, when counting, we did, so this includes the on-campus or off-campus housing. So we came up with a total of 3,623 student beds that have been created on and off campus from 2016 to 2022. And like you said, a big part of that was the North Campus residential expansion at Cornell. That was 2,065 dormitory beds. So again, that target is going to shift over time with enrollment, but there are quite a few student housing projects in the pipeline. We count roughly about 750 beds in projects that are planned or under construction. So those are the four housing target categories, and I guess to summarize, we have done well in terms of student housing. In terms of supportive housing, definitely a lot has been accomplished, but like I mentioned, HSC has identified the need for 100 new permanent supportive housing units. When it comes to senior housing, that's certainly seems to be challenging, and then when it comes to workforce housing, meeting the needs of the local workforce, we've definitely fallen well short of accomplishing the target. So those are the highlights. There's definitely a lot more information available in the report. I'd be happy to answer any questions about what you see in the report or from the presentation.
Open it up to the committee for questions. Veronica?
Yeah, thank you. I have a bunch. I'll ask two right now. Can you describe what a single room occupancy bed housing situation would look like? Because I don't know if I'm picturing the right thing.
Yeah, so single room occupancy would be, so it's a room that may or may not contain a kitchen, a bathroom, and is the primary resident of the tenant living there. These are rental units, obviously. They sometimes also have shared kitchen and bathroom facilities.
So would this be like in the context of should I be imagining like a college dorm room, but for
so no, when we're saying
students?
Yeah, no, so good point. So when we're saying SROs, it's more in the context of supportive housing.
Okay. Another question. Most of the time I've spent living in Ithaca, though not right now, my housing situation has been me and some other unrelated young adults living in a group setting anywhere from 2 to 7 people. And I am just curious, does that, like, if I live in a house with my 3 unrelated housemates, are we one household or are we 4 households for the purpose of the data you showed at the beginning?
You would be considered one household according to census definitions.
Okay, cool. And last one for now, the differences among the types of housing between like targets that have been filled or are going to be exceeded and targets that we're way short of is pretty striking, especially with the student housing. I mean, it seems like we're going to exceed the target for student housing, if I'm understanding that right. And I hear a lot of, I guess, my constituents talking about or maybe arguing about whether building more student housing will like address most people's housing needs by like, well, if we build more student housing, then the students will move out of the, say, workforce housing into the student housing, and that will open up more housing. This clearly doesn't touch the like supportive housing counts. But also presumably there's a reason that y'all or someone came up with the target numbers you did. So I guess, can you speak to that? Is the like student housing will solve most of our problems? To what extent is it a myth and to what extent is it real? If we're gone beyond the targets for students specifically.
I mean, I would say in a college town like Ithaca, the student housing is always a piece of the puzzle, an important piece of the puzzle. I mean, certainly the pattern could be that students are moving from shared living situations into units where they're living with fewer students or living alone. I think that if we're not, again, the student housing is an important piece of the puzzle, and obviously the market is very much there. But if we're not complementing that with addressing the workforce housing side of things, I think it's unsurprising that you're going to see a transformation in people's housing, the local workforce's housing situation. If you're not also pursuing, affordable housing, workforce housing, and the market rate workforce housing.
Just to follow, just a question to clarify on the student housing. Is this net new units? So this would be any units that were lost due to construction of new units?
Yeah, so we subtracted out, like you said, anything that's either demolished to make way for new units or is just taken offline. That was the case in one Cornell-owned property. For those planned and under construction units that I reported, whatever was there before that may have been demolished, we didn't subtract that out.
Sure, they're planning to build 26, but the net total, next time we do a snapshot, we'll take those into consideration.
Right.
And then it looks like as we talk about student housing, I think it's important to highlight enrollment and increases in enrollment, and it looks like you've kind of adjusted for that, but just curious if in previous, sorry, I'm just looking back, the housing strategy, there was a forecast for enrollment or sort of where that is pacing compared to what we thought it was going to be when we put these target numbers together.
Yeah, and I think that if I recall correctly, enrollment growth is actually under what was projected in the needs assessment.
Okay.
So, yeah, so plenty of housing going in with actually fewer or less enrollment growth than anticipated.
Got it. Okay. Mike, I saw you had a hand up.
Yeah, my question is more, so I was looking at the single-family home stuff, and it almost seems like we're lagging, but I'm kind of wondering if we don't need to kind of readjust our expectations. I mean, we were looking for single-family homes between, what, 150 and 200 and 199,000? I just don't see how that's ever going to happen, because right now it's like, what, $400 a square foot, Jennifer?
That's what's in Elliot's presentation.
$400 a square foot. I mean, so
Yeah.
we're not building 500 square foot houses. So I'm
Yeah. So yeah, those targets were set in a very different time. So in the report itself, we thought about that and the relevance of those targets and those price points. So we actually did some additional reporting with higher intervals, ranging from, so reporting those intervals, but then going from 200,000 to 300,000, 300,000 to 400,000, and 400,000 plus. And I think unsurprisingly, the 400,000 plus single-family homes, new single-family homes, increased substantially, I think, to almost half of all the new single-family homes as of 2022. Whereas, yeah, the units, was 150 to 199 or 150 to 200K. There are very few of them, and from 2019 to, I think we did it from 2000, or we did just from 2021 to 2022, the number shrank, and as a portion of overall new units, single-family units, it shrank. So it's those price points probably aren't too relevant anymore.
I'm just wondering if there's any way that we can kind of attack that. Like when a big project comes in for the IDA, we can waive sales tax. I mean, do you think there's a way that we can do that for developers, for builders of single family? Like we can say, listen, you're a builder of single family home, you come to us with a project or 5 different plans for single family homes, we'll waive the sales tax. Maybe we waive some of the other fees so that we can get that 400 down to something that's just more affordable.
Yeah. Well, actually, so before I answer that question, I just wanted to mention also that, so we're now in 2023 in this 10-year planning period that ends in 2025. So in 2025, we're, if we pursue a housing planning process again, we have a chance to reevaluate those, those price points and what we're trying to achieve. Answer to your question, I don't know that there are any easy answers because maybe those houses would have been built if there are, but we currently there is a group that has been organized by the Chamber of Commerce, the Housing Task Force, to specifically look at housing production, especially workforce housing production. I think definitely there'll be thought given to ownership housing in whatever form, whether it's single-family homes or otherwise. So we're, the Department of Planning and Sustainability is actively participating in those meetings and working groups. We have heard some ideas from our community partners, such as the idea of perhaps applying IDA incentives like the pilot incentive for single-family rental units that are on their own lots, but the pilot is applied across the board. So you're not immediately creating ownership units, but there is the potential maybe down the line to convert those to ownership. So those are some of the, the creative solutions, that we've been hearing. It's definitely a recurring theme, talking to community partners in terms of what's missing. So we are putting our heads together and trying to think of solutions.
Thanks.
So I definitely think that we should embark on a planning process in 2025, but I'll leave that up to my colleagues to formally direct that work plan at some point, because I think that this is important work. And what I'd kind of like to know, and Elliot and Megan, this is not for today for response, but how can we maybe take this information and within the next 2 years, what might be some levers that we could pull as a legislature, or ways in which we could advocate across the community and the county, different organizations, to help try to bump some of these numbers up by the time we close out this 10-year planning period. That's kind of a question I have in my mind and would like to explore, not today, but at some point in the next couple of months, have that conversation, especially as we look towards 2024 work plans and things like that. If I may just take a point of personal privilege, I see Martha Robertson is here with has her hand up. I know she's joining us. She's working with the town of Dryden on a housing committee as one of their committee members. Without objection, if Martha could ask that question, I would turn it over to Martha.
Thanks a million, Greg. Elliot, I really appreciate that. Elliot, it's good to hear all this, and I read through it online. I noticed land costs was one of the items that was identified as part of the reason for high cost of housing construction. And And I know we've heard much about infrastructure costs also being part of one of the barriers. Seems like those are kind of areas that possibly the county could actually use some leverage, use some resources if some of that were written down. I know we've talked over the years about parcels that are available and, you know, close to development focus areas. So I wonder if that's something the county might consider. And also I'm curious about the housing fund and whether, you know, whether that's able to move the needle at all. And are we seeing any of the money coming from IDA projects that was supposed to come as a result of their housing policy? Maybe that's a few questions, but.
Yeah, that was like 3, Martha, but we'll let it slide this time. It's been a while since you've been here. Elliot, if you want to, I know we've started to see funds from the projects come into the community, or we're starting to see.
We have started to see some funds come in. Those funds are tied to different landmarks in the development process, like closing or construction or completion of the project, depending on the project with the IDA incentives. To date, we have received, I want to say $235,000 in IDA incentives. We anticipate receiving additional funds going forward, but there have been delays in projects. So we are looking forward to early next year receiving some additional IDA funds that go into the Community Housing Development Fund for affordable housing projects.
That's good to know, and to share with everybody here. Also, I know that probably yourself, Megan, and maybe others in your department are currently looking broadly at parcels or starting to have conversations with municipalities that may have parcels within their community that may make sense for some sort of targeted development. Is that a fair generalization and safe to say?
That's right, and we're anticipating that that effort going into next year as well. And these are, I think Elliot's done a good job of trying to also place this in our national context, because every 0.5% of interest rate change we see on some of these larger projects can mean $100,000 every each of those changes. So we're seeing a lot of projects find holes in their budgets as they get from the planning process towards construction. So I think anything we can do, talking with the owners of public land, as well as if there are other large private landowners, employers and such, if there are ways to drive down some of those land costs or other costs, could be helpful.
Great. And then I think the third question was around looking at infrastructure, land acquisition costs, those types of things. And I know the Community Housing Development Fund continues to evaluate a number of projects as it comes forward, and as we work with municipalities to potentially identify these sites. More to come on that front.
And I'll say, with the Housing Affordability and Supportive Infrastructure Grant that the legislature supported as well, we hope that more to come with that as well.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder as well, Megan. All right, if quick question, Ann?
Yeah, actually, it was a comment. I know. I think it's been brought up here before, mentioned at the legislature. I'm looking at one of the pages regarding condominiums, and projected, or the goal was 800, and we have 20. And again, I know that we talked about this back when Martha was here too, like how to figure out how to support condominiums. And I know one of the adjacent topics that was brought up was how to tax people who own condominiums more. So just want to think about, that has been brought up or mentioned, at least in some committee, that if we're going to tax folks who own condominiums more, you are changing the kind of the factors that help make them more affordable. So just something for us to think about, that if we're doing something on one hand, if another committee is doing something different.
Yeah, we could probably spend several meetings talking about the complexities of condominiums as it relates to development and also the taxation of those condominiums. And then also what role New York State plays in the complexity of condominiums and the development of condominiums. Elliot, great work. Really appreciate it. Great data. Appreciate and thank all the data partners that you utilized. Also, so thank you for putting that together. Thank you for those of you who joined us for specifically this conversation. Also, while we're on the topic of housing, just want to give a shout out to Paul Rossi, who does government affairs for the New York State Association of Realtors, who's here with us today. Always a big fan of the committee. So Paul, appreciate you being here and playing an active role in our community as it relates to housing. So if that, we're going to move on as we're continuing to whittle away time on our agenda. Lisa, just wanted to, we sort of skipped over and kind of threw out really the agenda order today. So just wanted to see if there was a county administrator's report before we touch on the resolution around the Continuum of Care Home Together Tompkins plan.
Just a very brief update. I had the pleasure today of having lunch with State Senators Webb and Rivera in Binghamton to discuss workforce issues, particularly healthcare workforce issues. Senator Rivera is chair of the State Senate's Health Committee. He's from downstate, but is kind of doing an upstate listening tour and was interested to know issues affecting our, his rural upstate counties, and ask questions about our rapid response program for EMS. So Mike Steitley joined me as well for the lunch, and it was time well spent. So that's all I wanted to update you on.
Great. Thanks for doing that, and thanks for making sure our elected officials hear what our needs are, especially in our community. So thank you. Tammy, I'm going to ask you to come up now, and this is a continuation of the conversation that we started last month around the Continuum of Care Home Together Tompkins plan. We have on the agenda a resolution stating that, a resolution to accept the Continuum of Care Home Together Tompkins plan, ID 12026. If someone could move that for me, please. Moved by Ann, if there's a second.
Mike?
Seconded by Mike Sigler. And so we'll put that back on the floor for discussion. Veronica?
Yeah, I would prefer to adopt the plan instead of accept it, and I think we maybe already talked about that. But at least in this resolution, the resolution doesn't seem to explain why we're not adopting it. Like, it explains the difference between adopting, which is committing to implement the plan's recommendations in whole or in part, and I presumably this would be in part because there's lots of stuff that's for, many, many other community partners, and accepting is just acknowledging receipt and thanking its author. But there's nothing in here that I see that would point to not adopting, just a lot of stuff about what it is and why it's important and why the county is invested.
So part of the reason why, I don't know how, you guys know the legalities around this more. I think that there's only one piece in here that's really relative to the county, and it's the recommendation number 1 around low barrier shelter. And so adopting the plan, so it just seems like accepting it would be, we're acknowledging it, we're kind of in the same level playing field as a city. The city endorsed it, which is same as accepting it. The PEDC also accepted it.
More pointedly, because we operate the shelter, which falls under OTDA regulations, those regulations prevent us from being 100% low barrier. There are rules and regulations that individuals need to abide by in order to receive shelter. What we're committing to do is to try to identify and reduce those barriers as much as possible, but I think that those, in order to comply, stand in the way of full adoption.
That does make sense. Sorry, I don't have my notes in front of me, but was the low barrier shelter recommendation in the plan, was it specifically that it had to be a shelter that takes like state social services payments, or could it in theory just be like privately run or run by a nonprofit or something? Like if it was saying that we, the county, have to do this, then I understand like not agreeing to that if that is going to end up being against the regulations that we have to follow. But if it's just saying that there should be a low barrier shelter, then I don't really see the problem.
Since the county's charged with providing shelter, I mean, it's like, I think it would be really difficult to provide shelter. For a low barrier shelter means so right now, in order to get into the shelter system, you have to go through DSS, which, as Lisa says, has the OTDA regulations. And part of what that is you have to meet with a CASAC worker, a credentialed alcohol substance use counselor, and based on that referral, if they decide to refer you to a treatment program and you decline that, you refuse to do that, you wouldn't be in compliance and you wouldn't get shelter. And then further, let's say you do decide to go to CARS or ADC and you don't follow through with a treatment plan, maybe you're housed for a week and you don't follow through with a treatment plan, then you're sanctioned again and then you're back in the street. So that's just one of the barriers that people have that you have to follow. And these are really, they're not our regulations, it is OTDA.
Okay, so shelter means shelter through DSS, and all of our emergency shelter is funded through DSS in this county. We don't have others.
Well, the Advocacy Center has emergency shelter, which is separate from the emergency shelter at St. John's. St. John's is our only emergency shelter.
Okay, and is the Advocacy Center's shelter also funded through DSS under the, okay. I feel like that brings me back to my original question, which is.
But that's specific for people with, experiencing domestic violence.
Sure.
So I guess I'm trying to, the question is, why not adopt the plan if there's another entity besides the county that can provide the low barrier shelter? Is that what
yeah.
I'm not trying to put words in
I
your
guess
mouth, just trying to understand.
No, I guess you've collapsed two things. My first question was why not adopt the plan? Now I've kind of abandoned that and zeroing in on the shelter thing. The way I'm interpreting it, the plan says the county should somehow create and run, not Tompkins County, the organization, but like within the bounds of Tompkins County, the community should have a low barrier shelter. And it sounded like we at Tompkins County, the organization, were saying, oh, we assume that means we need to run it through DSS, but we're not allowed to, so therefore we can't do the plan, or the plan's like not adoptable. And that didn't make sense to me. It could be that I don't understand what it means to adopt a plan that is not like limited to only the operations of the Tompkins County organization, in which case I would appreciate being educated, and I apologize. Does that help?
Yes. Any other comments? Mike? Ann? Travis? We do have Travis Brooks now joining us remotely.
The only low barrier is.
I guess.
Oh, go ahead, Travis.
I just was going to say, I guess for us, we can only control what we're responsible for. we can't control what other entities do or don't do within the county. We can't control who they allow to stay in their shelters, who they provide shelter for. So if we were to adopt a plan, it assumes responsibility for what the county is responsible for, not what exists in the county, because we can't control what other entities provide or don't provide.
I'm just going to let it go.
Tammy?
I'll support the resolution.
I was just going, the only low barrier we have is when it's cold weather. So, and then you can see a jump in, like, normally there's 60 to 70 people in our shelter system that are approved through DSS, so have temporary housing assistant. Last year, at one point, we had 240 people in code blue. So these are people that, and I know that the shelter and other outreach people work really hard when code blue is ending to get people signed up for temporary housing so that they can continue to stay housed, but then there's a choice. We can use lots of different language, but then they don't do that, so they go back to the street. So I think, to Travis's point, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I don't think the county can direct any agency to shelter people not going through DSS. Yeah. But that's the lowest barrier we have is during cold weather.
Ann? Oh, sorry. Veronica, if you had a follow-up? Okay. Ann, go ahead.
Yeah, that was my understanding of what I read as far as whether it was recommended that we adopt or accept the report, because there were things that were outside of what the county was going to be, that Tompkins County government was going to actually be responsible for, and because it included other municipalities also. So regarding, I guess the low barrier, so I had a question on that, or no barrier. Do you have any other ideas of anything being planned in the community or in the future for a no barrier shelter?
I don't know of any, and I know just even now, even at the shelter, there's been safety concerns. So even people that are approved for temporary housing assistance, for example, they've attacked shelter staff. So there's an element that sometimes just when people are, so it's a big ask for somebody to take on serving people, providing shelter. You'd have to have a really tight-knit support system available, 24/7 support available for some of the severe service need population that we're referring to get housed.
And besides
or sheltered.
People who are, victims of domestic violence, there's not really anything else in the community, right?
That's correct.
At this point.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I may, I'm comfortable with accepting the plan because I think it will allow us to adopt things in the future. And I think if we, Tammy, continue to work with you and Liddy and other folks around the implementation of a plan or a portion of the plan, because this plan is not, as much as we'd love, to be able to wave a wand overnight and everything be solved, it's incremental, right? And we're gonna have to piece by piece make our way to a better environment and greater solution for the issues that we're facing. So for me, accepting recognizes the work that was done by the report, has us accept that as a little bit of a roadmap, in conjunction, Tammy, with your memo and findings and thoughts on, and I liked how you sort of phrased it, interpretation of the role of the county and how we can act on those things. And I think that can really help guide this committee and decisions that we make moving forward on how to address these issues. So for those reasons, that's why I think it makes the most sense to accept this plan and report and look to adopt items in the future as action items as we move forward, but really accepting this and acknowledging, yes, this is the issue, yes, these are the things that need to be addressed, and yes, we're going to work on something. Don't know which piece of it, don't know in which order, but we're taking this report in and going to do our best to make something of it.
And also the second recommendation, no, it's the first one around permanent supportive housing. There are, as Elliot was talking, there's at least 100 in the pipeline, and coming up soon is the 40 at Asteri. And that's kind of a housing surge, so that's being addressed, and permanent supportive housing is low barrier. Right, so that's there's some of that in the pipeline. And one recommendation is, there is some, and it's addressed here in my recommendations, is sometimes different counties interpret the OTDA regulations differently. So one suggestion is to invite OTDA to meet with the shelter and to meet with DSS and have a conversation and see how are they being interpreted different places. And maybe our DSS is just following the line and not going to waive, or maybe there is some flexibility. So that's another possibility of looking at that. Because one of the barriers is if somebody's working or if they have SSI or SSD, the state has a formula, so it's a state formula. They take 50 to 75% of your income. So that deters people from wanting to go through the shelter system because they don't want to pay themselves. So that's just one suggestion of how we could look at the OTDA regulations.
Lisa?
I think considering the Home Together Tompkins plan as an overall guiding document for all of the work within the county, all of the service providers, of which Tompkins County is a major player in what we offer around shelter and other services. So this resolution acknowledges our alignment with the goals of the plan, our alignment with Housing First and its supports, and the memo that Tammy provided, along with input from other county staff, just fleshes out some more questions for consideration or points on which we can work to address lowering barriers and moving ahead. So I think it really just ensures our alignment with the overall work of all the entities within the continuum of care.
Thank you. If there's no other questions or comment from members of the committee, I'd like to call this to a vote. We are going to have to do a roll call because Travis is joining us remotely. So Travis, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Ann Koreman?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes unanimously. Tammy, thanks for your work on this, and it's really just beginning. So we appreciate that and look forward to whatever the next steps may be. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, we have it's under broadband, Dryden Fiber presentation. We have Jason Leifer, Town of Dryden Supervisor, and Dan Lamb, Deputy Town Supervisor. And Dan, feel free to let me know if there's anybody else from the Dryden Fiber team that may be joining us.
Yeah, we have our lead consultant from Hunt Engineering, Ryan Garrison, who's going to walk you through some benchmarks that we've hit and some of our plans.
Great. So appreciate it. And Ryan, welcome to the committee. Jason, Dan, welcome. Wanted to have a conversation about municipal broadband and the work that Dryden Fiber is doing, and thought it'd be most appropriate for the committee to just get a general update on where you are and what your plans are and how it's going so far. And just a high-level overview. We've got about 15 minutes or so with some Q&A.
Yeah, well, thank you, Greg. And I was lucky enough to speak to the legislature as a whole about a month ago and speak a little bit about where our project is. And I think from the feedback I received that there was an opportunity to maybe share a little bit more about our story and what we're doing. I think we're the best kept secret in broadband, at least in the region. This is something we've been working on since 2018. And we've gone about this very methodically. And we're now at a point where we're actually serving customers. But first we started with a feasibility study, like any good project, and looked at, what the appetite for this type of work and provision of services would be in the community. And the response was very strong, and Ryan will speak to that in a moment. We also did a number of studies that ran through my program at the Brooks School of Public Policy here at Cornell. And I had student groups and other faculty study our project and look at its ability to meet its goals. And it all came back very positive for us. So we didn't leap into this blindly. We've done our homework, and now we're at a point where we actually have customers and we're getting very positive feedback on the project. It is municipally owned and operated. So we own the fiber that we're putting into the ground, and we own the brand. And we have a website, drydenfiber.com. We have a slogan, your town, your internet. And we're getting very positive response. We have this wonderful piece in the Cortland Standard. I don't know if you can read this or if it's coming out backwards, but it says, "Go Dryden Broadband, go." This is from 2 weeks ago, an editorial in the Cortland Standard. So we feel like we're hitting our marks. We had a lot of support from the state legislature. Anna Kellis just sponsored a bill that allowed us to do our bonding, raising money to provide services across municipal lines. And we just want the legislature to know what we're up to here, and that we have the capacity to keep growing, and the interest from neighboring communities like the town of Caroline. And I also just want to say we're very grateful to the Tompkins County legislature for the TCRF grant that you gave us of $75,000. We're putting that to immediate use, along with about $2 million other dollars in grant funding that we've received from the federal government. So that's the quick overview. I want to pass this on to Jason and Ryan for more details from their perspective.
Yeah, so I'll be real quick because I guess Ryan's got the maps and things you're probably interested in seeing. But like Dan said, we're a kind of a the best kept secret because the model we're using is municipally owned, not just for the middle mile or the backbone, but for the entire project. Right now, most of the time when you hear about a municipal broadband project, it turns into an open system, which means that the municipality that builds all the infrastructure just hires ISPs to do the customer servicing. We wanted to keep everything in-house because overall our goal is to drive the price down from where we start, and the ability to do that comes as we pay off all the infrastructure, because at some point you're just having operation and maintenance, and then you're going to have you're going to have market penetration to the point where we're really competing against some of the existing providers. And that's, I think, one of the things that people forget is we're not just filling in the zones that don't have coverage. We're planning. We wanted to overbuild because there is no competition effectively in most of the town right now. I mean, even in areas where there's Point Broadband got some money, I believe, from the county to build out in some areas, but they never would have hit those areas without the county money. And we figured also that any public investment should be owned by the public, not just handing off an asset to a private entity who's not guaranteeing to keep the price affordable to everybody, which is our goal. Right now we have many people who are going to be eligible for the Affordable Connectivity Program, but at some point we believe our price will, people will be able to connect without even using that program down the line. So this is going to boost educational opportunities, business opportunities, and it'll also continue to attract people to the region. It'll help out the educational institutions like Cornell, TC3, and the school districts. As you know, Dryden has students who are in the Dryden Central School District, Groton, Lansing, and Ithaca School District. George Junior is actually its own school district, but we imagine they'll at some point probably want to connect. And so it's going to be a boon for the region, and as we grow, we'll be able to, like we've already discussed with Caroline, they're using our central office, which is now powered and believe Ryan will probably say it's operational, so we're poised for a much quicker expansion than we've had so far this fall, since the backbone and all the points of presence are now active. So Ryan, you could take it away from there.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. I think not to bore this group with any of the technical details, all I'll say about the technical aspects of our network is one of the things Dryden identified as an issue is, not all broadband technologies are the same and equivalent. So they wanted to implement a technology that was the best possible, and we did that. So just know that everything I talk about here moving forward is all fiber, and it's the state-of-the-art system that's out there right now. And I think the big thing that differentiates us from everyone else is our model is unique in the fact that we're a pure municipal model. We treat this much like water or sewer, except we don't district. So we purchase broadband wholesale, and we resell it to our residents at the cheapest possible price that we can afford. And we evaluated several different models, and we landed on that one basically because it gave us the most amount of control over the cost of it, which was our main goal. Like, let's lower this cost and let's provide the best possible service for that cost. So, buying it wholesale was a better option for us than relying on a service provider who is going to mark it up. And to date, just to get into the details, like I said, we're a municipally owned infrastructure, and we deliver broadband service, and we do that in the free market. We compete against other service providers, and we do believe that our advantage is in the technology that we can deliver. There's only so many pure fiber to the home providers out there, so to penetrate a market as one really gives us a great competitive advantage. Like I said, we purchase it wholesale and distribute it at the lowest possible cost to residents. And unlike other public utilities, this is an elective service. We do not force people to subscribe to Dryden Fiber. We rely on the quality of our service to drive subscriptions. And we do believe that the fiber gives us an advantage. And not only that, but because we don't dabble in television or phone service, we can provide symmetrical bandwidth. So we can provide equal upload and download where other providers, they're beginning to do that as a reaction to the market. But we're first adopters in the area. So to date, we began in 2022 as soon as the ground thawed, and our approach was to build the foundation of our network, which included the backbone and several huts. So what you see here on the right-hand side, the blue line is our existing backbone. The green is new backbone that was just installed. And some of the other colors are just some of the distribution legs that we began to build out, and that we'll continue to do so over the next year. We really only began service I would say this spring. The first year was a lot of building, not much in service. We did get a few pilot customers up in 2022, but really the majority of that happened in 2023. We've got about 25 miles of backbone built today, with more going in the ground as we speak. We have 2 equipment huts that I would consider in service, and we have 2 that are really, on the verge of being in service. We have we're working on those, and they're about probably this next week. It's the central office, and we have a pop on Yellow Barn, which is an equipment location. 150 homes. However, that gets complicated when you start to talk about mobile home parks or multi-dwelling units. But approximately 250 are serviceable, and we have about 50 customers who are either under subscription or scheduled for installs. And what we've seen, we brought an individual on for some marketing activities, and what he's learned is that our subscribers are always rolling as far as how many we have. So next week we'll have even more than we have this week. But basically we have about a 20% immediate take rate when we go into an area. And then what we don't have is we don't have the trending to see how that's going to grow over the, coming months. So that's kind of what we're watching this year is after our immediate take rate, how does that take rate tick up? Because if it gets near 30%, we're immediately feasible. But the closer we get to 50%, it's going to help us with our business plan and breaking even in the long run. And then, to date, like I said, we've built out 3 POPs. This central office is the one that's about to come on here in the coming weeks. But we have one on Pinckney Road and we have one in Freeville. And really, this is the beauty of our network. Dryden really felt like it couldn't handle too much. There's a lot that goes into this. So the less equipment locations, the better. The network topology that we selected really reduces Dryden's equipment locations down to like 4 locations, as opposed to some other providers that have 60 to 100 in the same relative footprint. Now in 2024, currently we have make-ready bidding. So if anyone knows utility pole applications, they're preparing the utility poles via a bid that is out there right now for the Village of Dryden. So we'll be building out the Village of Dryden in the upcoming months, I would say 2 to 3. And the same thing goes with Freeville. The Tompkins County Recovery Fund, as soon as we were awarded those funds, those applications went in, and we anticipate that work to be done, probably in the tail end of January 2024, depending on weather at that time of year. And then as soon as summertime rolls around, basically the northern half of Dryden is on our radar for summer work. All the pole applications are in. A lot of these correspond with some opportunities that are out there right now and serve a lot of unserved customers. So that's currently our plan for 2024. I don't want to take up too much time, Dan or Jason, so let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to talk about. I think you're muted, Dan.
Yeah, Ryan, if you could just talk about our price schedule so they know why we're such a good deal.
Yeah, so for residential service, we provide all fiber symmetrical service. So that's our base package is 400 megabytes by 400 megabytes, and the cost is $45. And our next package for residential is 700 by 700, and that is $65. And then our gigabyte by gigabyte package is $90, I want to say. And then for businesses, we have really good attractive pricing too, which is like, I think 75 for our base level, 150 for our next level, and then 250 for our top level. So what we've found is businesses are very interested in our service. As soon as we pass businesses, usually they're almost 100% interested, probably because of our pricing and the quality of service that we can provide. That was another thing I wanted to mention, is that the one thing I've learned from this project is I did not expect the positive reviews of our network the way that they are right now. Like I was telling Dan this earlier, we could go at random and select any one of our current customers and provide a reference to this group, and I would be 100% confident that reference would be good as far as the service goes. All the feedback that we've got from all of our customers is that they love it, and we've got some pretty high profile customers. So we're really watching to make sure that goes well. And so far, several local businesses are extremely happy with the service, and then the residents as well. So we really feel like we've got a winning recipe here. And I think our heads have been a little bit down working for the last year. So maybe the message of our project hasn't got out there as well as it could have. But we're working really hard, and I feel like we're going to make a lot of progress here in this upcoming year. And so we're very excited.
That's great. I really appreciate the information, the update, the bold visionary idea, taking the first step as municipal leaders trying to solve a complex issue. You know, I know that this is an issue that we're continuing to have focus on at the county level as we look at, you know, addressing all of our communication and connectivity needs. So appreciate that. And I guess I'd look to members of the committee if there are any questions or comments. And just, again, I hate doing this, but being a timekeeper, just for a few short comments or questions. Veronica?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, all three of you. This was, congratulations. As I think you know, in our broadband discussions, we, one of the options floated was the countywide public broadband, and, you know, we all balked at the huge price tag. And so I'm wondering how, I guess, can you comment on the funding of, the funding of Dryden Fiber, and would it scale up? And I think you might have said this, is it ultimately going to serve every household in Dryden? Be available to, of course, they opt in.
So the plan is to build it out completely to pass every address in the town, so that every person who's able to get, who wants to sign up can. And as far as the, and I'll dovetail into something about that real quick, because with the multiple dwelling units, you're kind of at the mercy of the landlord. So while they can't force any resident into one provider, they also don't have to let you on the property to provide service. So we're going to have to figure out a strategy to negotiate with and work with the mobile home park owners and some of the larger apartment buildings. But we're pretty confident that their residents are going to want this, so that's going to help. And then for the funding, so we put all of our ARPA money towards this project. It was one of the categories that you could use that money for. We made it through COVID with a solid, bottom line. We actually didn't lose revenue like a lot of other municipalities. So we chose to make our investment in this because it would be it'd have town-wide benefit and in the villages, which are within the town. So we really thought that this is the right project for that money. And then we applied for an Appalachian Regional Commission grant to help with part of the backbone construction. So we received that, and that was a matching grant of about $650,000. And we've also been using bonding. So last year we put out a $3.2 million ban. We're going to be putting out another for about $3 million this January. Our business plan originally counted on only using bond funds because we weren't certain. At the time we had the study done and made the business plan. COVID wasn't even on anybody's radar, and we had no expectation of getting any relief funds or anything. So we planned this as a self-sustaining system with subscriber fees paying for everything. Some of the costs that are being borne by our general fund are going to ultimately be repaid. So we've set it up as an enterprise within the town, so it's a separate funding. It's like a capital, like an H budget, an H fund, like the comptroller. So it's mostly accounting, but and then our break-even number that we found in our study was about 2,000 subscribers. That's not even 1/3 of the households in the town. So, but we're with the anecdotal interest in this project, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility we have a 50% take rate as the publicity gets out there, and especially as we add the 2 villages to the customer list, because one of our first customer was Knickerbocker Bed Frames, and they have a number of employees who live in the village of Freeville who've been chomping at the bit to get this. And Assemblywoman Kellis, she lives in the village, and we were able to get onto one of the streets so far But as the poll applications are granted and we can get in there, I imagine we're going to have many more residents of the Village of Freeville sign up, and I know the same will happen in the Village of Dryden. And then from there, with the TCRF funds going up north, we'll be able to hit the long linear roads like West Dryden Road, Bone Plain, Peruville Road's going to get a line as well, which may, now with the legislation that was passed, enable us to serve a few people in Groton because just the distribution lines are going to cross municipal boundaries. So there might be a few people who will probably contact us, but now we're actually legally able to serve them. The same thing's going to happen with Caroline because to reach part of Dryden on Route 79, we have to cross through Caroline anyway. So that's how the conversations with Caroline started. But yeah, so the funding amount and at the time we projected it out was about 15 million to do this, and it'll pay off. Even if we don't get any more than the 2,000, I think the projection was 10 to 15 years pay off. But if the more grant money we receive, the shorter that period it is, and then the faster people sign up, it'll shrink that time period as well. So, and we knew we were kind of breaking ground on this because in New York State, it hadn't been done before, and the two other projects that are somewhat close to ours are open access ones. But they're being done through electric companies, so we're actually the only municipal-owned one. The Village of Sherborne's through their Village Electric Company, I believe Nichols is as well. And then there's two counties that I know of that are trying to do the fill-in model. They're Madison and Yates. And Madison's working with Empire Access to be the customer service provider, but that county did do a county-wide project, and a number of the towns contributed their ARPA money towards that. So.
And you had a question?
Yeah, thanks for telling us about your project. We've been really interested in hearing more, so I appreciate that. One quick question, you don't need to go into detail, but did you have to, for the first couple of stages, did you have to focus on the more populated areas to increase the subscription?
Yeah, the way we actually began the project was to use the rail bed to build, because we have to build a backbone and the central office and these other. So we actually designed our system based on that because it was the most logical place to put the fiber backbone. So those happen to go through two of the most populated areas. But yes, having the two populated areas support the system with more customers is healthier in the long run. But it doesn't preclude us from touching the more rural areas either, because Yellow Barn, for instance, when that POP is live, I guess like Ryan said, next week, we're able to then shoot off over to Irish Settlement, which depending on the part of the road, for instance, it's not as dense. Even going up the hill in Irish Settlement, it's less dense, but you can go down to the more suburban area that's near Route 13 and still pick up. Like if we picked up half of the households that live down there, that would be say 45. And we already service those homes with a water system. So I think, that take rate in that neighborhood will probably be pretty good. So, but it allows you to build out more, and the grants actually cover typically the areas that are more rural. So where there's not as much density, because if you were to cost out the payback time for those locations, it's much longer than in a more densely populated area.
Sure, thank you.
Mike, last question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, who's doing the build out? I mean, is the town itself, did you hire crews to do it, or is somebody else doing it?
We hired contractors, so we're using Syracuse Utility for the distribution lines and the backbone, and then there are the install contractors. So we're using Clarity Connect to install into the homes right now, and there'll be a couple others added over the next couple of months as well. So it's we're helping local businesses out. not only on the contractor side, but, you know, as customers as well. So and then the thing is too, I mean, Dan might remember more about this one, but I also know that the Ithaca Area Economic Development had a project that was going to run fiber through Dryden to Lansing. And I believe that might be going along Yellow Barn Road. So I don't know if it's still happening. It was supposed to go up to the I guess what's going to be a data center now up at the plant.
I think that's still going forward. I mean,
yeah, so
funded. So.
Make it go forward, yes.
Yeah, so I remember talking to Kurt Anderson about that a couple of years ago. I mean, Dan, do you remember if that actually was funded yet or not?
I don't know if they've given that money out, but we're certainly, offering our services, and that's why they spoke with us.
I'm on the IAED Executive Committee, and they are still trying to line up. They have all of the pieces in place, and they're trying to just get the other funders to be in alignment, but they're ready to go.
But I believe that we're going to be working with them too, whoever ends up doing that work. But so it's all, this is really not just connecting our town up, it's connecting parts of the county together too. So the more success we have, I think the better success all these other fiber projects in the county.
Well, I appreciate Jason and Dan and Ryan taking the time to come and kind of give us a little preview and an update on where you're at with Dryden Fiber. I also love hearing the fact that the rail trail is being used. We talk about multimodal communication or transportation, right? It's amazing to know that there's information being transported underneath and people being, transported on top. So it's really a unique project and one that we'll continue to keep an eye on. And I would just ask that if there's any great milestones or things like that, Dan, Jason, please feel free to share with the committee so I can share that back with the legislature. But would love to keep an eye on, your progress as you move forward in 2024, which is really strange to say. I feel like we just started 2023. So again, thanks for your time. Thanks for all your efforts and best of luck on the next stages of the project.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, so we started a few minutes late, and now we're a few minutes over. The last item we have on the agenda is to approve the minutes of October 4th, 2023. If I could have a mover, those moved by Veronica, seconded by Ann. Any comments, questions, changes, suggestions to those minutes? Okay, seeing none, and Travis is now off, had to step away from the meeting, so we'll do a show of hands. All those in favor? All right, those passed unanimously. And then I guess I would just like to say, appreciate everybody's flexibility as we completely threw out the agenda order, but tried to follow all of the agenda items as best we could to accommodate folks' time. Are there any comments from members of the committee? All right, seeing none, we'll call the meeting adjourned. Have a great day, everybody.